Hi everyone, thank you for watching the Netty Life. We're now showing on Punctured Media, so be sure to share, like and subscribe to see more. We'd also love to give a big shout out to Tribal Sport for supporting us. Welcome to the Netty Life.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Netty Life, where netball is life. You're joined as always by netball riders, enthusiasts and fanatics. Brittany Carter, that would be me, and Kate Cornish, that would be you.
Hi Britt, how are you? How fun is this week's episode? We're going to preview the Com Games. I'm literally buzzing. I can't wait.
Yeah, coming up on the podcast, you're right, we are going to preview the 2022 Birmingham Commonwealth Games. We've got the countdown happening. It's just 4 days now until the Aussie Diamonds hit the court. So we're going to cast our eye over the fixtures, analyse the top 5 ranked teams and give our predictions on where they'll place. But first, Kate, how have you been since we last recorded? Are you ready to give up a bunch of sleep to watch your beloved Australian netball team?
I'm absolutely ready. You know, this fixture actually isn't as bad as the World Cup was a few years ago. There were some absolute howlers, 1:30 and 2:30 a.m. games, but I think it kicks off at about 9 p.m. this Friday, our time. So absolutely ready. It will be just about dessert time as I'm getting ready to watch the Diamonds play their first game. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we're really lucky that they've given us the early slot for some of those group stages. But once it gets to the medal matches and the finals in the semi-finals, it starts to get a bit hairy early in the morning. So, yeah, you're right. Well, at least you're primed from all your previous experience watching the Diamonds play overseas.
That's right.
All right, so these are the facts you'll need to know. Netball runs from the 29th of July until the 8th of August at the Birmingham Commonwealth Games, if we're running off Australian dates and times, with the semi-finals and medal matches set to be played from Saturday the 6th of August through to the Monday morning on the 8th of August. There's 12 countries that will compete in netball at the Birmingham Commonwealth Games. They're split into 2 groups of 6, Group A and Group B, and each team will play 5 games against the teams inside their group, with the top 2 teams from each group then progressing to the semi-finals. Australia is in Group A, and they're set to play Barbados, Scotland, South Africa, Wales, and Jamaica. So it's lucky in that sense that they won't have to face the top 2 ranked world teams, New Zealand Silver Ferns or the England Roses, in the group stages. But the Diamonds will still need to face Jamaica, who seem to be the team everyone is most excited to watch. England are, of course, the defending champions after they won gold on the Gold Coast in 2018 with a goal on the buzzer to beat the Diamonds at the end of the final and break our hearts. They'll start their defence in Group B and will face Trinidad and Tobago, Malawi, Northern Ireland, Uganda and New Zealand. So whoever decided this schedule is quite smart, because fans are going to have 2 massive matches right before the semi-finals between England and New Zealand and Australia and Jamaica. I feel like they've done themselves a service there.
Absolutely. There's going to be some fantastic games in the pool rounds before we get to the business end of the Com Games. And is it okay to say that I'm just as excited to watch Jamaica play as I am Australia? Because I really am excited to see this Jamaican team. And, I think there's a podium finish in there for them.
I agree with you. Now, let's break down the teams, because we're going to look at the top 5 ranked teams in the world and their chances at this Commonwealth Games. As much as we'd like to analyse all 12 teams participating, if you're a regular listener of this podcast or vodcast, you'll know that we already tend to have a pretty long show. So we just simply couldn't do that properly, or we'd be here all day. So we're going to go through those top 5 teams: Australia, New Zealand, England, Jamaica and South Africa. So we'll start with the Diamonds, Kate, of course. Number 1 team in the world. Obviously, we're both Aussies supporting the Diamonds, and having a look at their squad, they have Sunday Ariane, Courtney Bruce, Sarah Clow, Jo Weston, Liz Watson as captain, Ash Brazel, Paige Hadley, Kate Maloney, Steph Wood as vice captain, Kira Austin, Gretel Buweta, and Cara Conan in their team. And the reserves are Ruby Bakewell-Doran, Jamie Lee Price, and Danelle Wallum. So they're world ranking number 1, and their best finish at a Commonwealth Games has been gold. They've won 3 golds. They've also won 3 silvers during that time. And at the recent Commonwealth Games, as we've already mentioned, they finished with silver after losing to England right on the buzzer with just 1 goal in it. So we're predicting them to finish with gold at this year's 2022 Games. And just having a look at their most recent play, there hasn't been a lot for the Diamonds, to be honest, since January when they faced England, South Africa and New Zealand in a quad series. But because the Super Netball League has not long wrapped up and we still tend to regard that as the best netball league in the world, they've been plying their trade against some of the best players there anyway, with a great deal of Jamaican and English players headed to the Games for their respective teams already playing in Super Netball teams. So they've had plenty of practice in that sense against players like Shamira Sterling and Jo Harton. And when we reflect on that most recent international tournament in January, that quad series we've alluded to, which was 6 months ago now, they did have success there. They went through undefeated and won the tournament after facing a couple of tough challenges against England in particular, with a 48-48 draw and then a 58-46 victory in the final. They also had some really strong outings against New Zealand and South Africa, where they beat those countries by 14 and 20 goals respectively. So Diamonds fans should feel pretty confident heading in, Kate.
Oh, look, are you ever confident going into these big tournaments?
I'm feeling confident.
I'm feeling confident, but we've been burnt, the last 2 times in big tournaments. So I'm nervously confident, let me say that. I'm just not sure. Look, I'd love to have a little bit more confidence. I feel like England are the team to beat in terms of the experience that they've got on court. So many caps to their name. Quite extraordinary, the amount of caps that are floating around that English team. But, when we look at the combinations that we saw earlier in the year with that quad series, we did start to see some lovely combinations forming. I particularly liked the mid-court combo of Paige Hadley and Lizzie Watson, so I'm looking forward to seeing that on court as well. But, of course, Gretel Buweta and Steph Wood are a fantastic combination for us as well. I think Gretel Buweta is just she's playing such great netball, and if there's anyone I think that will be the difference in that Aussie team for us, I'm hoping it's Gretel Buweta, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think she's definitely one to watch, and we'll elaborate a little bit more as to why as we go on.
Yeah, and so, as we go through these teams, we're going to talk about the players that are out for them and who actually won't be going to Com Games, but we've been really lucky so far, so let's just keep those fingers and toes crossed, because while teams have had some big names pull out of the Com Games due to a range of reasons, we've been so unbelievably lucky that we haven't been in that boat. We thought disaster may have struck. Yes. Like I said, cross your fingers and toes. Like, I want cramps in those extremities. Everything. Jo Weston, of course, there was a bit of a slight almost disaster. She'd contracted COVID and needed to stay behind to carry out her isolation in Perth while the rest of the Diamonds headed over to the UK. But then with further testing, the crisis was averted. What they realised had happened was that they caught the back end of Weston's asymptomatic bout of COVID, that she was no longer infectious, so she was actually allowed to travel in the end, which was fantastic news. So, Jo, so much experience in a Diamonds lineup that is actually lacking experience at the moment, plays such a pivotal role in defence. If she had have been missing, that would have been big for the Diamonds, definitely impacting, their lead up to the start of the tournament. We're not too sure if this bout of COVID that she had has affected any fitness, but we were told it was quite mild. So fingers crossed, she's right to go when they're ready to step out on court.
Now, we've already touched on Gretel Bueta as well as Jo Weston, but we thought it would be fun to pick a few players from each of these teams to point out. And the first one on our list from the Diamonds, of course, is Gretel Bueta. I simply could not start without her, Kate. So she was the player of the series in the quad series in January, shot 41 goals at 97.6% in the final against England, and only missed one goal the entire game. That's a huge workload. I think with Gretel, we all know she's generally a player that, due to her flair, will put bums on seats. She sells tickets. She's got that excitement factor for sure. But what I'm loving about her in recent times, and something we certainly saw in the quad series, is her ability to play a more mature, steady style of netball and, really just become a target under the post, whether she's moving or holding. So she can switch between those two styles of play. And especially with her taking on more of a role at goal shooter for the Diamonds, that control play is going to be crucial when it comes to the dying moments of medal matches.
Yeah, I actually really like Gretel Bueta in goal shooter. She's a very strong target under the post, physically a fantastic target for them. And it also then allows players like Steph Wood and Kira Austin to come into the game at their more natural positions of goal attack. But it means you get Gretel Bueta on court, which is the be-all and end-all, I think, for the Diamonds. So wherever she's going to be, the point is basically she just needs to be on court, whichever shooting position they pop her in. Next up, I want to talk about Courtney Bruce. I think she's one to watch as well. Obviously, fresh off winning the back of her first Super Netball Premiership as captain as West Coast Fever, you'd have to imagine that she'll be absolutely brimming with confidence ahead of the Com Games. I feel like she's reached the peak of her powers under Dan Ryan, who's really encouraged a more composed Bruce in that goalkeeping position. No doubt she'll still bring plenty of drama to the court. She wears her heart on her sleeve. But her game seems to have gone to another level this year, and she doesn't let the umpire calls or the shooters get into her head as much as she used to. And that's going to be really important, staying under the radar of the international umpires. Some stats for Bruce was that she topped Super Netball for rebounds this year, 39. And
wow.
Also and also the deflections with 103. Second for intercepts, 36. So it's clear while, she still has that physical element to her game, she's also worked out very cleverly how to play netball, not exert too much energy and getting caught up in any tussle or whistle, which has been such a big improvement for her game. Now she'll be reverting back to playing under Stacey Marinkovic in the Diamonds camp. So it'll basically just be like coming home for her. Keep an eye on her for Com Games. She'll be crucial to the Diamonds.
Absolutely cannot wait to watch Bruce. The last player we wanted to sort of bring up for the Diamonds was Ash Brazel. Stepped away from her AFLW career this year to focus 100% on netball and making sure that she gave everything to getting a spot on this Diamonds team for the Commonwealth Games. And that's exactly what she's done. So good on her. Ash is now 32. She turns 33 at the end of this year. So this is likely to be her one and only chance, you'd think, of getting a gold medal at a games like this. And while the Collingwood Magpies fell short of the Super Netball finals this year, Braz was a real standout for them and still managed to play some great netball. I'm particularly looking forward to seeing how she finds the balance between when she needs to play that one-on-one tag style of wing defense and when to follow her instinct and come out for a flyer. So, yeah, Ash Brazel, can't keep her off the list either. Definitely another one to watch.
Yeah, and I think it just makes all Aussie fans' hearts swell to know that she's made this team. Finally, gets to go to a Com Games. I read an article the other day about her, and she really thought that this moment had come and gone, like that she was never going to make the Com Games team. So for her to be here in this moment is really, really special. She is one of those players that you know what you're going to get from her. It'll be 110%, and she will just relish the opportunity to go out there and play in that green and gold dress. This is what she has been absolutely hanging out for. And, if there was anyone that deserves the gold, if this is to be her last shot at a Com Games, I just wish her all the best. She's phenomenal. We've loved her for so long, so that would be a fantastic, icing on the cake for Ash Braz and everything she's given to this sport.
100% agree with you. So second team in the world, of course, the New Zealand Silver Ferns. Now, having a look at their team, they have Maya Wilson, Tapaya Selby-Rickett, Grace Nweki, Bailey Mez, Gina Crampton, Shannon Saunders, Whitney Souness, Kate Heffernan, Kayla Johnson, Phoenix Karaka, Kelly Jury, and Suze Patrick. Gina Crampton is the captain, and their reserves are Amelia Ran Ekanazio, Claire Kirsten, Tiana Maturo, Mila Riu-Elu Buchanan, as well as Ellie Temu. So their world ranking is obviously second, and their best finish at a Commonwealth Games was back in 2006, 2010 when they won gold. They've also won silver 3 times, and of course, we're not counting that 1990 final in these stats for Australia and New Zealand, where they finished as the finalists and Australia won that final in the Commonwealth Games, because no medals were actually awarded that year as netball was introduced as a demonstration sport. So yes, gold twice, silver 3 times for the New Zealand Silver Ferns. Now, I have them finishing fourth, Kate, but I'm not confident about that, because I feel like they could be dangerously flying under the radar, which is what happened at the Netball World Cup in 2019, and we all know how that played out.
Yes, we do.
So do you also have them finishing fourth? Because we were agreed on gold for the Diamonds.
Yes. I mean, would we be silly enough to call them fourth when we know how badly they burnt us at 2019? I'm not sure. I don't know who you leave out of the top 3, though. In terms of experience on the big stage, you've got to give it to New Zealand over Jamaica, I guess. But then who do you leave out of a podium finish out of that top 4? Ask me later.
I know, it's tough, isn't it? I feel like we're poking the bear. Well, when we look at their most recent play, they made it to the final of the Cadbury Series, which is the exhibition series played in New Zealand over the last 3 to 4 years, if you haven't heard of it before. And it features teams like the New Zealand men's team, and this year it also featured a New Zealand A team and also a New Zealand mixed team. So that was really cool. But they made it to the final, the New Zealand Silver Ferns, and then lost to the New Zealand men's team 67-48. So that was a 19-goal loss. And it was actually the first time the men had won the Cadbury Series since it was introduced in 2019. And it was their biggest ever victory over the Silver Ferns. So, I mean, it's very hard to compare men's netball to women's netball, but the fact that the Silver Ferns have been beating the men in the past makes me a little bit worried about where they sit heading into the Commonwealth Games. And having watched that series, most of the matches in it anyway, I think something that popped up for them was inconsistency, as well as a lack of accuracy in the circle, because the team shot at 77% in the final against the men, and they really struggled to convert key turnovers, as they had way more deflections, 25-9, more intercepts, 7-5, and still only converted 10 out of their 20 total turnovers. So they did really struggle a bit in this series just to get some consistent form. But the good side of things is that they were able to consolidate a starting 7 as the series went on, because I know that Nalene Tarua was not 100% on who she was going to go with for that. So that'll be the best of what they can take from that invitational tournament, that they finally have a starting 7 that the coach is happy with. Before that, their most recent match play was in January at that quad series we've already alluded to when we were analysing the Diamonds, and they finished third there, but they only just beat South Africa 51-50 in that third and fourth playoff. So it was a little bit of a dangerous sign there too. They've got a huge amount of outs, Kate, and I think when we talk about this team, and of course they are still the world champions, so we still obviously need to pay them a fair bit of respect, because, second in the world champions when it comes to a World Cup. But there are a lot of outs for them. And of course, one of the big outs is Karen Berger, who usually occupies that goal defense, goalkeeping position for them. And I know that during this Cadbury series, Nalene Tarua was really talking about how she was not super confident about who she was going to stick in that goal defence bib to start. And so, yeah, I mean, we've already alluded to Berger, but can you sort of tell the listeners about all the other outs that they currently have?
Yeah, sure. I think, and also just to say, it's such a different lineup than what that 2019 World Cup team was as well. That was a New Zealand team, absolute star-studded team, that one as well. But yeah, unfortunately, as you said, we won't see Karen Berger play for the Silver Ferns this Games. Foot injury has ruled her out. She needs surgery as well. And it is unfortunate because Berger covers all three defensive positions really, really nicely. 33 test caps for New Zealand. She's a really big loss for them. She was part of that 2019 World Cup winning team. Must acknowledge as well, this team are the current world champs. We've said it about 3 or 4 times now because it still hurts.
Yeah, we don't want the New Zealand fans to tune in and think, oh, well, they're just completely throwing them under the bus, because we do obviously see huge potential in their pathways, and Nalene is the best coach in the world. But it's been a long time. I mean, it's only been 3 years since they won the Netball World Cup, but it's felt like a lot of a longer period, considering COVID's happened since then, and their team is such a different looking lineup now.
Yeah, and that's all it is. I mean, it's just that it is such a different lineup, and they've had so much change since that victory. There's also been retirements. And when you talk about names like Laura Langman, Maria Folau, Casey Kapua, I mean, they are just huge, once-in-a-lifetime generation kind of players that we were also so used to watching play for the Silver Ferns. They're just not there anymore. So Katrina Rore as well, Jane Watson and Amelia Ann Ekanasio have all taken breaks to have babies recently. So that means just one player from their starting 7 of that 2019 World Cup final remains. That's Gina Crampton, who is now their captain. So that's massive in the space of a few years to lose your entire team and only have one left. Of course, they also had Tapea Selby Rickett, Shannon Saunders, Phoenix Karaka, and Bailey Mez on the bench for that World Cup final. They're all still in the team. I'm a bit of a fan of Bailey Mez, but that is such a loss of experience. And, they are probably going through a period of transition now since that 2019 World Cup.
Yeah, all of that is true. But then, as we've said, we can't really underestimate them or write them off, because they still won the 2021 Constellation Cup series off the back of some of those really big retirements. And Australia did have an inexperienced shooting circle then, and Seabass was sort of on her way out. So there was a lot of change happening for Australia in that series too. But they also had Ekanasio at full strength, and they had Jane Watson in the team then. So, even in that past year, they've been through a lot of change. Now, when we think about the players to watch for them, we've got to start with Maya Wilson-Kate. She was a joy to watch in this Cadbury series just gone. Is playing a lot more netball in the goal attack position now and has wonderful range. And it's just funny, isn't it? Because there's no super shot in the ANZ Premiership, and yet their shooters still know how to shoot long. So I found that quite funny, watching her nail the long bombs way out without even needing that rule to encourage her to do it.
No, the New Zealanders have never needed a rule to encourage them to be great long shot shooters. But just on Maya Wilson, I remember her watching her debut season. It was a while ago now, but just loved her in that goal shooter position. But really interesting, like you're saying, she comes out and plays goal attack now, and I just don't think it matters, because the point of her game is just brilliant timing and body work. So I feel like anywhere down there, and she's also such a great feeder of the ball as well. Really clever player. So she's definitely one to watch out for. I do love a midi Britt, so I'm very keen to talk about Whitney Souness. She was a real fan favourite in the Cadbury series, won plenty of praise for her work in centre, considering she sticks to wing attack for the Central Pulse normally. They also won the ANZ Premiership this year. And she said she hasn't really played centre consistently since her high school days, which is interesting as well. As a wing attack, she finished the New Zealand domestic season with the second most centre pass receives, with a huge 395, and was fourth for feeds with 536. Her defensive work is also very impressive in the mid-court, and we know one of the characteristics about the Australian team is that they pride themselves on winning ball back down the court. So if Souness can help New Zealand do that, she will be key for them.
Yeah, absolutely loved watching her in that Cadbury series. And fun fact for you, Kate, she's actually a DJ. So away from the netball court, she's known as DJ Tino. Loved that. Yeah, I love a quirky personality in netball, so all for it. And so full disclosure, I'm cheating a little bit here, which I do a lot on the podcast, make my own rules. But instead of naming a third player for the New Zealand Silver Ferns, I'm going to list their coach as one to watch, because honestly, I mean, Nolene Tarua is just a coaching mastermind. I'm of the opinion, Kate, that she's still the very best coach in the world. And although her team head in with some really big question marks, Nolene has been very clever with her preparation. She used the Cadbury series to really emulate what they're going to come up against in the Commonwealth Games in terms of their match play. And even the final of that series was played later at night to replicate what's going to happen with Com Games should they make it to that gold medal match. So she's really set them up absolutely as best she can. And she was actually instrumental in setting up the Cadbury series 4 years ago. So she is one clever woman. She also has really high standards. And I remember one of the main discussions about the 2019 Silver Ferns World Cup team was about their fitness and the standards that had to be met in order to be selected for the team under Nolene's watch. And the team later cited this extreme level of fitness that they had to reach for her as one of the reasons they were able to go toe-to-toe with Australia in that final at the World Cup in Liverpool for the entire match, because they just didn't feel that they had ever been able to do that entirely before. So now we head into this Com Games. There again has been a lot of discussion around fitness. Some players were told they simply weren't fit enough to be on the team. So it will be interesting to see where that fitness level is when they hit the court in Birmingham, because the other similarity I've seen is that they're flying under the radar a little bit. And as we've already mentioned, they did that in the 2019 World Cup. Tarua was very happy about it. So we've got to be careful not to underestimate them. And even though we've put them in fourth, I wouldn't be surprised if they medal one bit.
Yeah, you're right in terms of the fitness. She is one tough cookie when it comes to that. But you have to be, because you know, we saw what that level of fitness that she took them to in the 2019 World Cup did for them. It got them the gold medal. And I love that she's that tough. And I think it's really surprising that anyone who went for that comms game team and didn't make it due to fitness had any excuse as to why they weren't fit enough. They know what she expects, and it is literally nothing but the best. So a fantastic one to watch. And if anyone can get the best out of a team, it is Nolene Tarua.
That's right. And it's not even just the fitness aspect on its own. It's about being so fit that your brain is still working when you're buggered, right? It's being able to make great decisions under pressure, and being able to live up to that fitness so that you have the mentality and capacity to make those decisions. So absolutely, it's all for a good cause. Now, third ranked in the world, and obviously heading into these Commonwealth Games as defending champions, are the England Roses. In their team, they have Eleanor Cardwell, Jade Clark, Sophie Drakeford-Lewis, Stacey Francis Bayman, Layla Guskoth, Jo Harton, who is the vice-captain, Helen Housby, Laura Malcolm, Jiva Mentor, Nat Metcalf, who's the captain. We have Ebony Usoro-Brown and Imogen Allison. So they're the top 12 players. And then the reserves, they have George Fisher, Hannah Joseph, and Fumi Faduju. And their best finish at a Commonwealth Games, obviously we've been harping on about it, is gold in 2018. And that's the only time they've actually made the final. So they've got a 100% success rate in a gold medal match, Kate. Of course, they've also won 3 bronze in the past, but they'll be trying to cling on to that gold medal. However, we're predicting they'll finish with silver. So I think that we'll see them make the final against Australia, Kate, but I do think that Australia has enough to beat them this time. It's a bit of a contentious one. I know that a lot of people are tipping England to win on home soil. yeah, it's going to be a really tough one, but definitely those two teams for me in the final.
Oh yeah, I keep forgetting like where it's in Birmingham, and it is obviously a home. This is going to be a really hard one. That home crowd is going to, ultimately be another player for them, and they will just relish in that, and they will not want to relinquish that gold. They're confident, they feel good. They're another team. They play such a similar style of netball to Australia. It's that real body on body, real physical sort of netball. So it is really like Australia playing Australia. It's different to how we play against New Zealand or how New Zealand play against us. It's a totally different ball game. They really have a similar style to us. So yeah, if they are the two teams in the final, goodness me, if the Roses can make the final, it's going to be very hard to beat them with that home crowd advantage.
Oh, and I think too, when we look back at 2018 when they won gold here in Australia in that Gold Coast Commonwealth Games, they then weren't able to back up that success at the World Cup in 2019 on home soil in Liverpool. And I know they were absolutely devastated about that because they finished with bronze and they thought that they deserved to make the final and, do the double, get the Commonwealth Games and World Cup title, but they weren't able to do that. So will that spur them on to get it for the home crowd this time? We'll have to wait and see. In the past 12 months, when we look at their form, England have beaten the Silver Ferns 2-1 on New Zealand soil. And they've also defeated Jamaica 2-1 in a 3-match series hosted at home in the UK in November. And they were also, as we've alluded to, the top two teams in the January quad series, challenging Australia all the way with a 48-all draw and then a 58-46 loss in the final to finish as runners-up in second place. They are the defending champs. So, Kate, what are the outs? Because I feel like this team is very strong. And really, they pretty much got everyone there that we would expect them to have, really.
Yeah, agreed. This one actually really breaks my heart. Beth Cobden, she was only recently ruled out with a calf injury. She'll be replaced in the team by Imogen Allison. It's a huge loss, having to put a line through Cobden's name. She was one of their 2018 gold medal winning players. I think Cobden already had the injury. She just ran out of time to get back to full fitness after rehab. So unfortunately, they had to pull the pin on her. Doubly sad, she also missed the 2019 World Cup with a knee injury. She's got 28 caps for the Roses, and that's experience that you just can't buy. And you want as much of that experience as you can going into a big tournament like this. So, yeah, really sad for Beth. We both think she's a fantastic player. So just such a shame that she couldn't make, back in time to be picked for the squad.
She's had a terrible run of injuries, poor Beth Cobden. But never fear, English fans. There are still plenty of positives. At the top of our watch list, we've got Nat Metcalf, who we've referred to as Haythornthwaite before she got married, who has been on absolute fire this year in her return to the Vitality Super League for the Manchester Thunder. The Thunder won the title this season, and Nat was a big part of that because she had 386 feeds and finished fourth in the league for that stat. And this means she'll head into the Commonwealth Games feeling very fresh. Now she's living at home in the UK with her husband and with all their family. So England, being the host team, won't have to travel very far. They'll have all their familiar surroundings and, very much inside their comfort zone. So we know that Nat is capable of greatness because she's won 2 titles already with the New South Wales Swifts. And I know you particularly miss watching her, Kate, this year in a red and blue dress during the Super Netball season.
Yeah, I did. I always felt like Nat was such an underutilised player in Suncorp Super Netball. I think so hard with the team that she was in, to get a whole heap of court time, but she was good enough to play every minute of Suncorp Super Netball while she was here. I think her combination with Sam Wallace in particular in that Swifts team was second to none. Absolutely fantastic. And the other player actually is Serena Guthrie. Who won't be. Yeah, she's not available because she's pregnant, having a baby. So she's retired, I believe, I think, from netball now. So that's actually a massive loss. Yeah, retired. So huge loss for them in the centre. It's like losing Laura Langman in centre for the Ferns. Exactly the same, just in the red dress for England. How they fixed that up in the mid-court, I'm not sure, because, again, she was a once-in-a-generation sort of player, Guthrie. But, look, hopefully she'll be watching with a cup of tea at home and enjoying what's going on, even though she's not there anymore.
Or watching from the side of the court, right? Like, I'd love to see her. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. I think when these players retire, I always hope that we don't lose them from the sport, because someone like Serena Guthrie around that England Roses team is just such a bonus in terms of, you know, being a mentor, or, you know, however they wish to include her. Maybe if it's not now, but later on, in a few years' time, when, you know, when there's a space, or, you know, you just wouldn't say no to having her around.
We've seen Nat Medhurst announce she's making a comeback to the sport. So you just never know. She
never
could
say
come back.
never.
You never know.
Never say never. And look, you know, she is the sort of player that would seriously, it wouldn't surprise, like that just wouldn't surprise me at all. She's retired, but, you know, John Farnham's also retired about 50 times. So we never say never. The other player that Aussie fans here obviously will know the name is Layla Guskoff. Now, we absolutely love her as well. She's been playing for Team Bath this year. She's obviously back in the UK. She's a doctor. She's a netballer. She is just absolutely everything. She's a superhuman. So, yeah, she finished the Super League season over there with the most intercepts, 67, and finished fourth for deflections with 90 of those. So when we look back at the quad series too, there were some tight battles between her and Steph Wood in that goal defense, goal attack matchup. And she actually finished that final series with 3 gains, the most for her team, 2 intercepts, 5 deflections, and a pickup. It was the same story in that drawn match between England and Australia in the regular rounds, where she finished with 3 gains, 1 intercept, 5 deflections, and 1 rebound. So, yeah, she is certainly right. If nothing else, consistency. So she is a player that we will expect to see a lot from.
All right. Well, we've waffled on long enough. We've gone right through the teams. We've been really in depth. But as usual, Kate, I've really enjoyed your insights. Thank you for joining me to preview the Commonwealth Games on the Netty Live podcast.
Oh, thanks, Britt. I've been looking forward to doing this pod for such a long time. I'm hyped. I can't wait.
Been a few weeks coming. So, yeah, it's been wonderful to really have a look at the ins and outs of those teams and talk about their prospects as we head in with 4 days left to go. Cannot wait. Thank you to everyone listening back home. We will be with you again during the Commonwealth Games group stages. So expect another podcast and another video from us at some point during the group stages. And we look forward to unpacking whatever happens with the Diamonds and the rest of the competition then. Thanks, and bye for now.
Bye for now. Thank you for watching the first episode of The Netty Life. A big thanks to Tribal Sport and Punctured Media for supporting us. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe so you don't miss any of The Netty Life.